Hey there, true believers. You're back for another episode of Monstrous, the podcast. And tonight I've got Jim Hartley here, and we're going to go over some really strange stuff that's happened in his life and in his little neck of the woods up north. Jim, how you doing tonight?
I'm good, Robert. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, sir. It is so much of a privilege to have you back again.
Oh,
We
thank you
did
very
we
much.
did a little bit of an interview the other night whenever we did the stuff for the Halloween show, which is going to pop out on Halloween Day before this one will. This will pop out on YouTube on the Saturday right after it. So if you guys are listening to this one, you probably heard Jim. He was the first one on the Halloween show, and it was some great stories. So we're going to pick up from where we left off, Jim, and tell us just a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, I live in Northwest Pennsylvania. I'm almost 60 years old. I work in a foundry, so I'm a pretty blue collar kind of a guy. Uh, I've hunted and fished my whole life. I live on the family farm. We have an 80-acre farm here. I've lived on this farm my whole life. I wasn't born here. I was actually born about 30 miles south of here, but I've grown up and lived here my whole life, except for when I went to the service. I've been here my whole life. I'm married. I have two kids. My oldest son's in college studying. I knew I'd screw it up. He's studying psychology. He's already got his bachelor's, and he's going for his master's now in clinical psychology with a minor in criminology. He wanted to study forensic psychology, and his counselor kind of talked him out of that. He said, because you'll get burned out on that. He said, so nobody, if you have the clinical psychology, you can go into family psychology or whatever. And people will come see a family psychologist. They don't want to come see a forensic psychologist because they think right away, bad stuff.
Yeah.
My youngest son is the night watchman at the shop. He watches our furnaces for us at work. My mom and dad live 496 feet from my house down at the bottom of my driveway. I built my house on the farm so I can take care of them. And a lot of stories that I have come from my dad, either stuff that he experienced when he was younger or stuff that he's experiencing now.
Right.
Trying to figure out. I try to look at everything with I'm not going to say I'm new to the world of cryptozoology so much as because I've known what that was for a while. But as far as actually investigating things, I never really investigated it that much, other than just to try to figure out what the heck I was seeing or what the heck had happened, or because some of the stuff can really borderline, and this is going to sound maybe a little bit dumb, but some of the stuff can really maybe borderline on stuff in nightmares, because you see things or you've experienced things that you shouldn't see and that shouldn't exist.
That does not sound dumb at all.
And like I said, there's several different areas. This area here seems to be a hotbed for stuff. There was an article in the paper a few years ago about the Navy being up here doing an investigation into as far as all the UFOs sightings that were in the area. Again, you see the stuff, and it's like I said in the ghost stuff, it's not that we're kind of like taking a I don't know how you put it, like a nonchalant view of the thing. Okay. Mm-hmm. It's just, you're used to it. And when it happens all the time, you just kind of go, oh yeah, that's normal. And it's weird the amount of normal that you will accept after a while, because you just go, I don't know what it is. But it was kind of interesting, and it was in the papers up here. It was in a pretty good sized paper, actually. I think it was in the Youngstown Vindicator. I think it was in the Pittsburgh Post Gazette about the Navy being in the area looking into this stuff. So the weirdness around here, like I said, there's several different areas that it would fit in, but that it fits into, but it doesn't fit into.
Right.
You know, well, I'll just leave it at that. Because I don't really know how to explain it beyond that. I try to look at things. When I started seriously looking into things, I started looking at it like, what's the line? When you eliminate the improbable, whatever's left, however impossible, has to be the truth.
Right. Sherlock Holmes. Yeah.
Sherlock Holmes. I try to look at it that way. It's like, okay, what isn't this? What am I looking at? What is this not? What can this not be? Okay, now, and as I laughed because I was talking about Bigfoot. I was laughing because I've been reading some articles today, different things today about it, and the question that keeps coming up is, how come nobody can get a good steady picture of it? Why is everybody? Well, I would hold that camera so steady. I read this, and about the third one that I read, I thought, until that's happened to you,
Yeah.
don't tell me how you're going to hold the camera steady. Don't tell me what you're going to do. Don't tell, because until you've experienced it, you don't know what you're going to do.
That's exactly true. And what a lot of people don't realize is a lot of the pictures that we do have were actually at a greater distance where someone had to zoom in.
Right.
And once you start to zoom in, try to hold your camera still once you zoom in.
Right.
That's very hard to do.
Yes.
Now, then on top of that, get your blood pumping and your adrenaline going and see just how hard or how easy it is. I mean, I imagine you're probably a hunter, right?
I am.
Okay, so how many times have you been in the stand or in the blind and a deer shows up and you feel like your heart's going to just pop right out
Every
of your
time.
chest? Exactly.
I missed the biggest deer in my life because of that. It walked out, a gigantic, non-typical buck walked out, and he was right there. And I was looking at him, and I kept looking, and I kept going, look. And I shot right over his back, and he walked away. And I went to the gun store a couple of days later, and I walked in and said, somebody got there about 2 weeks there. I said, somebody killed that buck. And the guy in the store said, what buck? I said, that one. He said, no. He said, we found that head down the railroad tracks, got hit by a train or something. And I was like, well, then I missed his brother 2 weeks ago, because I'm telling you, I saw a twin to that deer 2 weeks ago, and I missed him, and I've never seen it since. But yeah, you're right. Your heart just goes crazy. And it doesn't matter if it's a deer. I had a really interesting experience when bow hunting about 15 years ago. I was in my tree stand, and I had a bear come up on me.
Oh.
And it walked underneath, and I was watching it, and I'm like, okay, I'm just watching and watching and watching. And the bear walked underneath my tree stand, and I'm like, okay, this isn't good, but he'll keep going, And he got under the stand, and he sat down and he looked up at me, and I'm like, uh-oh. And then he proceeded to sit there for 45 minutes.
Oh, Lord.
And I told someone, they're like, well, did you get pictures? No. I was worried about this thing not coming up the tree and getting me. Right. I was worried about how I'm going to get out of here if it does decide to come up the tree. I'm not worried about pictures.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what I would have done. Yeah. Until it happens to you. You're good, full of good advice until it happens to you.
Exactly.
And I honestly think there's a lot of people that have experiences, be it with Bigfoot or Dogman or whatever's out there. I think a lot of people have experiences that don't talk about it because they, first of all, were scared to death.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, they have no idea what it was. And third, they don't want to be ridiculed because of it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I can tell you, I mean, we've got a area that we're doing Bigfoot investigation on. This is our second year up in Missouri, and I just went out and set up 3 cameras. Well, as I was going out to put the third camera up, I happened to catch something out of the corner of my eye across the field and into the woods. There was a pine tree, 2 pine trees that are about 7 foot tall. And as I was walking, I saw something behind the pine tree and a little taller than the pine tree, brown. And it was like the back of the head of something. And I saw it and I stopped and I thought, well, wait a minute. Is that just an optical illusion because I'm walking forward? I'm seeing something. So I backed up and there was nothing there. Now, it never made a sound. It never alerted the dogs. I never saw it go anywhere else, but I happened to see that back of that head as it moved. And I went over and measured, and it would have been about 8 foot tall.
See, I guarantee you there's a lot of people that, I'm not going to say it happens all the time, but I was just thinking about this today. 99 out of 100 trips into the woods, nothing happens.
Mm-hmm.
That one time, that's enough to go, well, no, I don't know what that was. What happened? And somebody said, well, if you have seen these things or you've experienced these things, you still hunt. Yep. Why? Well, because I refuse to change what I do because of this.
Mm-hmm.
Because part of me thinks if I change what I'm doing because of this, this is closing the door on something that I, first of all, still want to understand to my dying day, want to understand, and I want to know what it is. It's out of my curiosity alone. Now, people think that's kind of insane because the majority of the hunting that I do with either a crossbow or a muzzle loader. They're like, you're out there with antique weapons, going up against something. I'm not going up against anything. Let's get that straight. I'm not hunting this thing at all.
Right.
But if I see it, I want to see what it is. I want to know what it is. I want to get evidence of what it is, more than more than what more than like well, I would like to get hair samples if I could find some.
Right.
I'd like to get footprints. That would be you kidding me? I would be so happy. It wouldn't be funny.
Yeah.
But more than anything else, I just want to see what this is, and I want to figure out what this is because it's been here for a while, and I can tell you that for my dad will never admit to it, but my earliest remembrance, my earliest thing event, my dad had all kind of books about weird stuff, UFOs and demons and Bigfoot and Loch Ness. Most of the stuff about Bigfoot and Loch Ness monster UFOs. And one of the earliest movies I remember my dad taking us to see was when the Patterson-Gimlin film came out. They made that In Search of Bigfoot or something, On the Trail of Bigfoot or something. Yeah. Came out in the theaters back in the early 70s. I remember us going to the theater to see that movie and just being fascinated by it.
Mm-hmm.
And coming out and well, that can't be real. There's no way that could possibly be real. Well, and then we fell back on the comforting aspect of the fact that it's out there.
Right.
It's not here. It's out there. Which gets us to this. Probably, like I said, I'm almost 60 years old. I was when we were kids, we wanted to go camping all the time. If we wanted to camp, we had to camp in the backyard. Go throw a blanket over the clothesline, weight it down with some bricks. There's your tent. You're standing in the backyard. Well, when we got to be teenagers, me and my cousins decided we were going to go camping in the woods. And we realized, we stick. See, the woods around here it's all fenced in. It's all of the wood area except for like one field on the one side here is fenced in. All the fields are fenced in. We had cows over there. Stay inside that, you're fine. Now, this is before we knew about there being bobcats in the area. This was before anybody had started talking about bears in the area. So there's nothing. Okay, should we be scared? No, there's nothing to be scared of. The only thing out there's deers and raccoons and stuff. Okay, so we got our little tent. We went camping a couple of times, about 3 times. We'd gone camping, everything was fine. Neighbor kid wants to come with us, so me and my 2 cousins decide we're going to scare this kid. Now, this is before all of the stuff, where the guys go out and tree knock and hoot and holler. We're kids, we're teenagers. So we're going to scare this kid. And I don't even know why. I don't know why we decided we're going to scare him, just because we thought it'd be fun. But we start making weird, like hooting and hollering, woo, woo kind of things, and pretty loud. And the kid goes, "What are you going to do if something's out there?" "Oh, come on, ain't what's going to be out there?" So I start getting louder with it. Ooh, as long as I can go. And then, we stop and we're laughing, and we hear something over there doing the same thing back at us. Yeah, a ways off though. The neighbor kid goes, "I'm gone." Boom, took off. I'm like, "Where? Well, you can go through the woods to go home. It'll be like a quarter mile." And he goes, "Nope, I'm not going through the woods. I don't know I'm going home." He walked 1.5 miles around to get to his house. So we're still, he's such a baby, blah, 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 blah. We're tough guys. We're not scared of anything. So we keep doing this. Woo, we're taking turns doing it. So there's my 2 cousins are younger than me. So we're taking turns. And this thing now it's doing it and it's getting closer. And I said, "I don't know what that is." "Oh, maybe it's just an owl or something." "What's this broad daylight? Why would there be an owl? Why? I said, "You know what? Maybe we need to go home. Maybe we should just pack up and get out of here." Now they're starting to get scared too. And they're like, "Well, yeah, let's get our stuff." So we're trying to pack stuff up. And my one cousin says, "This is stupid. Do that again and see what happens." I said, "Okay." So down low as I could go, to as high as I could go, as loud as I could, for as long as I could, and I stopped. cows come running. Our cows were up there in the back, and they come running down off the hill. And I'm like, well, that can't possibly be a good thing. And then this thing came back, ooh, at us. And it was so close, you could feel it vibrate in you. It was that loud. And we were gone. We're out. We're running. So, and it was kind of funny because they were smaller than me, so they could get under the fence. I had jumped over the fence, and I'm just yelling, run, 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 go, run, get to the house. And I got up, and I took off running after them. And I don't even know why, because I'm always thinking, I guess the little voice in my head kicked in and said, whatever this is, you probably shouldn't run. So I turned and looked over my shoulder, and there was something standing inside the fence. Again, like I told you before, the Appalachian thing, don't look into the tree line. I should look into the tree line. This thing standing there, and it was probably at least 8 feet tall, and it was brown. It kind of reminded you of the Wookiee in Star Wars.
Chewbacca.
It was like that color.
Yeah.
But it was big. It was big, big, big. And we're hauling. I'm just run, go, run. So we ran. So we get to the house. My mom's like, what's wrong with you boys? I said, I got to call Dad right now. Dad was at work. Dad's rule at work was, you don't call me unless the house is on fire, somebody's been in an accident, or somebody's dead. Okay, so I called Dad. What's going on? I said, Dad, I don't know what's happening. There's something in the woods. The cows all took off running. It chased us out of the woods. And he's like, I don't have time for this. I'm running trains. I don't have time for this. And I said, Dad, I'm telling you, there's something here. There's something out there. There's nothing there. And I said, nothing. Just stop it. I'll look into it when I get home. Needless to say, I didn't know. He had called my uncle. My uncle's like, I'll go down. Him and my uncle came down. Come on, we'll show you where it was at. We'll show you. Well, my cousins, we're not going. I'm not going to go. They don't want to go at all. I said, I'll show you where. You stay here. We'll go look. Dad, please take something with you. Take. There's nothing up there. It's me and your uncle. We're fine. There's nothing up there. So they went up. They were gone for, I don't know, close to an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And they came back down, and all they said to us, I said, what out? What'd you see? What out? What? Kids, what'd you see? What'd you see? All they said to us was, you boys are done camping. They never explained why. So, okay, so we're done. We're not camping anymore. But that's one of those things that's the nightmare that I get now. So, still to this day, sometimes I didn't know what this was. Now, like I said, we had this all fenced in, and so we had to put barbed wire up all the time. And barbed wire was expensive, still is, but it was expensive back in the day. And Dad was very, very, very particular about the fence. I'm very particular about the fence because you don't want to screw that up. You don't want to mess that wire up, and it's electric fence, so it's got to be. You got to keep it tight. You got to keep it clean. It keeps the animals in. My dad, however, was a pretty smart guy about how he figured out how he could check things without having to walk the whole way around this. So this is probably a year later, 2 years, maybe a year later. We're checking the fence. The fence is dead on the east side of the pasture. It shouldn't be. That's brand new wire. It shouldn't be dead. So we checked a couple other things. We don't know where it was. We've got to walk it. We went back into the woods. And this would be an area probably about 500 yards from where the camping incident took place, east of there. And we went over, and he said, the fence is down. What do you mean the fence is down? We have iron fence posts. They're like that big around, probably.
Mm-hmm.
It's bent flat. It's bent like this to the ground. And the wire's gone. What do you mean the wires? The wire, it's got to be here. We're looking. Find the wire. The wire's got to be here. So he says, I said, well, what happened? First of all, let's put a pin in this. What happened to that fence post? Because you can't, the two of us together standing on that couldn't bend that. What happened to that post? He goes, well, a deer ran into it. I said, Dad, if a deer ran into that post, that deer would be laying, to bend it like that deer would be laying here. Let's find the fence. So we start looking. We find the fence, about 150 feet of wire, wound into a tree, like around and around and around, into the tree. So we actually had to cut the tree down to get the wire out of the tree.
Good grief.
Yeah. There was hair hanging on it, but, okay. So there you go. Had we been thinking, maybe we would have took a sample of hair. At the time, we were just mad because our fence was broke.
Right.
And so, but we had to cut. It was wound. It was, and that tree was, tree was pretty good size. It was wound into that tree. I've never seen anything like. So we fixed the wire, and he's like, I don't know what happened. Well, do you think it could have anything to do with what we saw? What me and the boys saw? No, because that's not possible. You don't think? Because I said a deer didn't wind that into that tree. If a bear did that, it would still be tangled up in it probably. And it didn't bend that post flat like that.
Right.
So what was it? I don't know. We're not going to talk about it anymore. Which tells me he knew something. He just didn't know how to talk about it.
Right.
So again, it's one of those things where it happens, you fix it, and you forget about it. You go on with your life, because we had cows and things going on, and we don't. As long as the fence is working and the cows are in, we're happy. Nothing's messing with our cows, we're happy. Nothing bothered the cows. The fence never got bothered with again. I don't know what it was. So time goes on. And where everybody's hunting, everybody's looking good. Nobody's saying anything about seeing anything weird when they're out hunting. So I'm just assuming there's nothing, that was, I don't know what it was, but I can't explain it.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 years ago, and I'm not saying things haven't happened, because I have been in the woods hunting when you get that feeling, I've been in my stand and it's like everything goes dead quiet. I mean, everything.
Right.
And that's it's dead quiet for, 5 or 10 minutes. Sometimes it's just a couple seconds, but usually it's 5 or 10 minutes or a half hour. 45 minutes, and I'm looking to see, well, okay, I know what causes this. I know that there's a predator of some sort here. What is it? Is it a bear? Is it a bobcat? What is it? I don't know. But it'll be dead quiet like that for 45 minutes or an hour. The longest was an hour and 15 minutes. Mm. And at that stage, I was in the tree stand going, I'm trying to come up with a plan, because if something doesn't start acting normal pretty soon, I want to get out, because I'm 18 feet up a tree stand. That's not high enough.
Right.
That's a weird way to look at it, but that's not high enough. I don't know what's out there, but that's not high enough. And, okay, I got a crossbow. Good. I got one shot.
Yep.
If I need to use it, I got one shot. Then what? That's not high enough. So that happens, and it's just that's just so weird. But it's normal. That's normal life. And when if you're a hunter, you're even a fisherman, that when you're out fishing or you're out hunting, that stuff happens occasionally. Most of the time, you see what it was. A lot of times you don't, and I didn't know what it was. But it's not going to stop me, because I'm still going to go back out in my tree stand tomorrow. I'm still going to be back out there the other day, every day this week, because that's what I do. But last year, a buddy of mine comes up. He hunts in the swamp down here below my place, and he said, something weird happened to me last night. I said, what? He said, I was going to my stand, and I found 3 dead deer. He said, okay, deer die. I've found deer 100 yards off the road that got hit by a car and got that far off the road. Right. Deer die. He goes, you don't understand. What don't I understand? He said they were dead. And I'm like, yeah, I got that part. We have that chronic wasting disease going around now. And there's some kind of hemorrhagic thing that they get that, and I guess they just die. Yeah. And I'm like, okay. And he said, we talked about that. Well, that could have been one of those things. He said, yeah, the weird part was they were piled up. What do you mean they were piled up? Well, they were like, there was 3 of them in a pile, kind of not like in a pile, but like together. Right. I said, well, that's odd, because even if they had the hemorrhagic thing, they're not going to drop dead together like that. He said, well, the weird thing was, he said, now this is just your typical Pennsylvania bow hunter. When we're going to the stand, we could see Smokey the Bear on fire, and it's going to be like, yeah, well, I got to get to the stand so I can be in there before 3:00. I'm hunting. Sorry, dude, but that's the way it's going to be. Right. There's not going to be a whole lot going to distract us. But he said, I thought I better take a look just to check, because I'm thinking maybe there's a poacher in here. So he goes and looks I looked real quick. He said there was no bullet holes. There was no arrows. They were just dead. He said the heads didn't look like they were quite right, but they were just dead. And I said, so what did you do? And he goes, what do you think I did? I went to my tree stand. Oh, well, that was a dumb question. All right, you're fair enough. So he said, but the weird part was I wanted to check it out when I came back out. And he said, and I don't think I came out the same way I went in. I said, why? I said, because when I went out, I couldn't find them.
Mm-hmm.
He said, it was about a couple hundred yards from my stand, but I couldn't find them when I went back out. And I know I go the same way in and out, but I couldn't find them. They were gone. And I went, oh, that's weird, because dead deer aren't going to get up and walk away.
Yeah, they tend to stay pretty still.
They tend to stay put. So I said, well, if that happens again, because I'm right here, if it happens again, call me. I'll come down. Because now I'm interested. I want to know what's going on.
Right.
He said, okay, I will. So that was the last I heard about anything as far from him. My neighbor down the road west of me, their cousin works with me at the shop too. And he come up and said, like a week or so later, come up and said, have you noticed anything weird? I said, define weird. He goes, no, it's like something's off in the woods and I don't know what it is. Something's not right. And I'm like, yeah, there's definitely something off. I don't know what it is, but there's definitely something off. But I'm trying to figure it out. Why? And he said, well, my cousins, they bow hunt down below you. And I'm like, yeah. He said, you're not going to believe this. Try me. He said, they found 3 dead deer. Now, the first 3 were all doe. He said, they found 3 dead deer. I said, okay. He said, they found a doe, a spike, and a 4-point in a pile. No bullet holes, no arrow holes. Their heads kind of looked like they were kind of twisted, kind of funky. I said, what'd they do about it? Well, they called the game warden. The game warden came out. They went to take the game warden to where the dead deer were at, and they were gone. It's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's some caves up behind here. They're not really substantial. But we used to camp in those when I was a kid too. And I don't know what's beyond that, because if there's caves here, there's probably caves on up through here too, I would imagine. I know there was an old abandoned mine up there. But I told him the same thing. I said, tell your cousins if this happens again, call me, because I'm right there. I want to see this. I want to know what this is. I said, what did the game warden say? The game warden said it was probably a poacher just came and got the stuff. There's no way a poacher is going to grab them. And the time it took your cousins to walk to the house, call the game warden to get there, even if it was 2 hours, there's no way they're going to haul 3 deer out of there in 2 hours. They're not. Right. The country's too thick.
Right.
Well, what do you think it is? And I said, now we're getting into that area. I said, I can tell you what I think that was. It's the same thing that was east of here. I said, I think, because you think it was an ambush. No, I think it was maybe a food cache, because it's getting towards that time of the year. I said, whatever's here, I think, was storing up stuff for winter. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, aren't you freaking? No, because they're not hurting anything.
Right.
They're not hurting people. They're not bothering us. I don't know what it is. I can tell you that I've seen weird stuff. Like you just said, I've seen something out of the corner of my eye and then looked and going, wait a minute, what is that? Mm-hmm. And usually it doesn't move. It just it'll kind of hang out there a little bit until I glance away, and then it's gone.
Right.
I did. Well, that is another weirdness aspect of things, but I don't know what it is. I don't. A few years later, after the whole incident with the fence and all this stuff, again, I'm not thinking about Bigfoot. I'm not thinking about the stuff. I'm just kind of going about life, because let's be honest about it. Unless it happens every day, I'm not paying attention. At that stage of the game, I actually kind of forgotten about stuff. But I was 18 years old. I was going to school down in Newcastle, and I was coming home one night. And when I would get off the main road, I'd cut cross country to come home. And this is back before around here, a lot of our intersections don't have street lights over them, even to this day. So if there's one that says a stop sign, you know what intersections are the ones you better stop at because people have been killed there. There's been accidents. Well, this particular intersection it's now a 4-way stop. It was a 2-way stop at the time. So, and it was raining and it was starting to snow. And I come home and I stopped, and I always waited a long time at that intersection because my dad had been in an accident there. So I always waited a long time. So I'm sitting there and I'm waiting. No cars are coming. Okay, I'm good to go. So I just started going, and it sounded like something, hit my fender on the driver's side. And I hit the brake. What the heck was that? Just in time to look out the window, and I looked back in the windshield, and there was something in front of my car going across the road on 2 feet. Not a dog, not a bear. Looked like a person walking across the road.
Right.
It was across the road in about 2 steps, 3 steps, up over into this guy's yard. And I was just kind of sitting there going, what was that? It was the days before cell phone where we would have cameras or dash cam or all that. And I'm going, what was that? And I just sat there for the longest time going, I don't know what I don't know. So I came home, and my plan was I'm going to go back tomorrow morning and ask that guy if I can go look in his yard. Right. So I went back, and I thought, and I actually went to the door, and there was nobody home. Like, crap. And I didn't want to get looking around because the neighbors would call the police and the cops are going to show them, what are you doing out here? Well, I'm looking for Bigfoot, I guess.
Yeah, right. Sure you are.
You're right. So I left it alone. I'll go back later and talk to this guy. Well, wouldn't you know it? And I've got the book. And I was trying to find the book. I wanted to show you the book tonight. I got a book about just weirdness in Mercer County.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be darned if there's a chapter now about the UFO stuff over the swamp here, but a couple chapters about that. But I'll be darned if there's not a whole thing in there about Bigfoot sightings in this area. And there's a whole log thing in the back of it of all the police calls about this. And wouldn't you know it, on that date, because I remembered what the date was, I wrote it down. This is when I saw whatever. And wouldn't you know it, I looked it up in that book, and wouldn't you know, there was 4 police calls that night for a prowler in the neighborhood, a big guy in the neighborhood, going behind the houses and across yards and stuff. The cops had actually not investigated that one.
Oh man, I wonder if that backyard that you knocked on the door, I wonder if that might have been one of them.
It probably was.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the nature of the thing. Like I said, what makes me think that my dad knows more about this stuff than he's telling me is when he was a kid growing up, and then one part of our family lore story. You're going to like this one, maybe. Oh,
I'm sure I will.
My great grandmother, they lived that's the mountains down around West Virginia. There's the place where this farm was at a place called Allen Bridge Road. Now, if you're ever down there, Allen Bridge Road to this day, you have 2-way traffic on it, but they have pull-offs for school buses to go on that road because the road's not that big. Mm-hmm. And the road there's actually 2 creeks that cross there that you drive through the water year round. There's no bridge. This is I always, whenever I take somebody new down there, I always say, now you're in deliverance country because this is wild. And it's like a weird roller coaster. When you're driving on this road, you can look over out your window. It's straight down to the river. Mm-hmm. You're like, man, this is bad. But back behind here, up on the mountain, there's all these roads back in there that all of them are now, for the most part, gone from the logging and the mining and stuff. But my great grandmother kind of did midwife stuff because, back then you couldn't get to the hospital. If you're going to have a baby, you had to get the midwife in. And she wasn't really a midwife, but she was the one that they called. How did he put that? She was the one they called when when they were birthing babies.
Right.
And her and her friend Katie had gone down to the neighbor lady's house because she was having a baby. And they were walking home up the road. Now, they had their own version of Bigfoot or whatever you want to call it down there. They called it the hairy man that lives in the mine, because there was a mine up on the hill.
Right.
But nobody knew what it was. Well, they were walking back from this lady's house. It's after dark. They got the old lantern, and they're going along. I can't imagine anything scarier than that, than walking down a dirt road with one of those lanterns, those kerosene lanterns you really can't see that good with anyway. But they're walking down the road going home, just talking, and this thing starts following them along the edge of the road, just out of sight where they can't see it. And they're both getting scared. And it follows them all the way down the road, and it keeps following, and it's making noise, and it's growling and carrying on. And her friend Katie she's really scared. Now, Grandma Della, she was pretty scared too, but Grandma Della was, how you say, born with the bark on. You didn't mess with her. And she would put up with a little bit, but not much. Well, after this had gone on for a while, she was mad, but then she was scared, but then she was more mad than she was scared. And they came to a kind of a crossroads. There was a split rail fence there, and it was a broken rail laying up on the fence. And she jumped off the road and grabbed that broken piece of split rail fence and yelled, "Come on, you son of a gun! I've had enough! I'm gonna bash your head in!" And her friend peed herself right on the spot. So that was the story we were always told when we were kids. Well, then my dad tells a story about going to, when he was going to go to his first dance at school, didn't have a car. They rode a horse everywhere. Mm-hmm. So he went, and I can't imagine that, but he's like, yeah, I had to go saddle up, the old dollar, and got the dog and went off to my first dance at the school. Okay. We took the dogs with him. The dogs went everywhere with him. He was coming back from the dance at the school. The same thing happens to him. This thing starts pacing him on his way home. The dogs got so scared they went under the horse. He just got mad. He's just done. Mm-hmm. He got home and he said to the old guy that lived there, he said, "I want the big gun." He said, "I need the big gun." The guy said, "Why?" He said, "That dang thing's out there and it followed me home and I'm done." He said, "You stay in the house." He said, "You don't go out there messing with that thing." He said, it'll go back up on the hill there, back up to the mine. You don't mess with it, period. Leave it alone. I said, "What was it?" He said, "I don't know." But we weren't allowed to go mess with it. So that's the kind of folklore that we had. But this other stuff, like I said, I can't explain it. I try to look at the stuff through a very careful lens. And I'm trying to get better about taking pictures of things. 2 years ago, we were supposed to do a family reunion here, and I didn't want to do it. And, we got to do it. So the day, I think it was that morning, I got up to go out, had to go to the store, and I went out, and there's a tree broke across my driveway. Probably about 2.5 inches around, a locust tree, about 4 feet up in the air, snapped off 4 feet up, leaning over in my driveway. Now, locust trees, we make fence posts with those. There's a reason for that. They don't break easy.
Right.
It looked like somebody had just went boom. And you could see where something had come up through the grass behind there and went out across in front of my house. So again, I'm thinking of other things. I went down, I looked, I came back up. I said, "There's a tree break in the driveway. What's that supposed to mean?" "I think it's a tree break." Now we're hearing about this stuff. It looks like a tree break like you see in these videos. Yeah, whatever. She doesn't know what it is. She doesn't care. She's trying to get ready for the reunion. So I go back now and take the chainsaw down because I got to get out the driveway. I took a couple of pictures. I thought first maybe a tree top had fallen and broken out from these other trees. Well, there's nothing laying on it. It's just snapped off. And in hindsight, what I should have done was I should have backtracked east into the gully that was there because that's usually wet. Maybe I could have found something in there. But again, you're not thinking about it at the time. Right. You're just thinking, now I'm inconvenienced because there's a tree across my driveway. I don't know why there's trees down there. So I took the pictures and cut the tree up and got it out of there. I told her cousin about it. That's a mistake. Well, you got two groups of people there. You got the group that are going, "Yeah, that's real. I believe in it." Then you get the group that goes, "You're nuts. There's absolutely no way. You are out of your mind. That doesn't exist." So I don't know. I told her cousin, I said, "Believe it or not, I don't care. Here's a picture. You can see it." He goes, "Oh, I don't know, man. That's scary." Okay, that was scary. All right, cool. So I go bow hunting in the fall. Then I'm out bow hunting, and I did the same thing I always do. I get in the tree stand and I'm looking around, and Now I'm kind of watching for stuff. There's got to be something else here. There's got to be something. And then I think now you got to watch doing that too. I've discovered, because the more you say there's got to be, then to me that's when you start going, that's it. You get a lot of people who will go, who then you see Bigfoot behind everything.
Yeah.
And it's not. But so now I'm trying to be a little bit more vigilant. And the deer always come in behind my tree stand. There's a game trail that runs through there. So this one night I thought, I'm going to go sit on that, go by the game trail and wait for them to come in. So I went up and I'm sitting on by that game trail. And it's one of them deals where all of a sudden you go, you don't see that every day. I look up and it looks like one of those, the classic structure thing where you got, a tree that's kind of upside down with another tree that's kind of upside down, stuffed in it, and branches stuffed in it. And I was like, isn't that something? Mm-hmm. I'm sitting there looking at it going, well, that's not right, because that tree shouldn't be broke off. And the same deal. It's up, snapped off. And I'm like, that shouldn't be like that. So I go start looking around. Well, that one's upside down. That doesn't belong like that. And I'm looking at it, and I went back over and I sat down and looked at it some more. And I'm like, I should probably take a picture of that. So I did. Of course, the pictures should do justice to what was actually there.
Right.
I'm doing this because it was weird, because the branches, I was reading that thing the other day about the things being braided and woven and stuff. The branches on the one end were all like wove together. That was the really weird part of it. But as I'm sitting there looking at this, I go back and I'm sitting down staring at it going, that's kind of interesting. And then I decided to look over my right shoulder, and there's another tree broke off about 4 feet up, pointing the same kind of direction. And I went, don't see that every day. That's my reaction. And I looked at it and went, wait a minute. There's one beyond that that's done the same thing's done to. And there's one beyond that the same thing's done. It's like a line going towards the edge of this field.
Right.
So I thought, I should take pictures of all that. So I'm going to take pictures of that. And then I realized how dumb I probably was being, because then I realized my current situation was I was sitting about 20 yards off a game trail, an active game trail. So if this is hunting, I'm kind of in the wrong place. But in the same vein, the same kind of thing about my other category of weirdness, there was the wolf that I saw.
Oh, I'd like to hear this.
Well, I watched that. I've been watching that thing about the Skinwalker Ranch.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I find that interesting, and I'd really like to know what's going on out there too.
Right.
But, so I'm in the back of my back hayfield, and I'm up in a tree. I'm bow hunting.
Right.
And I'm watching deer out in the field. It's raining, and I had come in. There's mud in the corner where I came around to one corner. So I come up and I'm sitting in my tree stand, and I'm sitting there watching these deer. Now this is the first year I crossbow hunted, and I didn't realize what the range of a crossbow really is, because it's got some range, and I didn't know that. I was still thinking compound bow. Mm-hmm. So I'm waiting for these deer to get in closer, and it's raining and it's getting overcast, and they're eating, and I'm waiting. Okay, come on. And all of a sudden, that dead quiet noise hits. Well, lack of noise hits. And these deer all did like that head raise and looking over thing. And I'm like, what's going on? So I look, and I'm going to tell you, and God is my witness, it was the biggest, blackest. It looked like a wolf, like you see in Yellowstone, but it was big. It was humongous in the corner of that field looking at those deer. So, my analytical brain goes, okay, wait, what kind of dog is that? And I'm running through the dogs in my head. No, it's not that. It's not that. It's not that. And it stood there. And I'm like, it's not that. It's not that. It's not that. What is it? The deer are still, they're all like, they're ready to go. And it's standing there. And I'm going, what the heck is this? And I can't, I don't know what it is. I can't think of what it could be, because that shouldn't be there. That should not be there. Well, this went on for about 15 10 or 15 minutes probably. It probably wasn't even that long, but boy, it seemed like it was.
Mm-hmm.
And as I look back, I keep watching the deer, and I'm watching this thing because I'm trying to see if it's going to come closer. Then I'm deciding what am I going to do if it does come closer. I have a crossbow again. What am I going to do if this comes closer? But I'm watching this thing, and I'm watching these deer, and all of a sudden, the deer kind of just calmed down, went back to eating, and all this noise started again. The birds and the squirrels and all that, and I went, and I looked, and it's gone.
Oh,
gone, dude. And I'm like, okay, now I'm thinking, I always try to keep my phone where I can get to it in case something would happen. But that day I had it in my pack. I get my phone. Now I'm not ready for it now. It's not there.
right.
So I'm like, okay, all right. It had to come. I know where it had to come from. It had to come straight into that corner. There's no other way to come in there. It had to come in. So I climbed down, and I'm going to go look. I went over, and this is no kidding. You could see my footprints. There were no footprints. Mm-hmm. There should have been, as big as it was where it was. There should have been footprints, and there wasn't. And I don't know what it was. So me going, okay, what now? What? I don't know. Who do I tell this to? Because people are going to absolutely go, you're nuts. Well, my buddy that I work with lives about 2 miles from me, west of here. And I ran into him at work, and I said, let me ask you a question. He goes, okay. I said, you bow hunt a lot. And he goes, yeah, I bow hunt all the time. I said, have you ever seen out of my mouth? He said, the big black wolf thing. And I said, yeah, huh? He goes, have I ever seen the big black wolf? I said, yeah. He goes, yeah, I've seen it like 3 times now. I said, you what? And he goes, that's what you were going to ask me. Have I ever seen that big black wolf? I said, yeah. And he goes, I've seen it 3 times. I said, what is it? He goes, I don't know. I said, have you ever tried to track it? He goes, with what? There's no tracks. So neither one of us know what it is, but it's here.
Mm-hmm. That reminds me of a story out of Tennessee, I think it was, where they've got something similar to that. I think the first time I had seen or heard anything about it was on, what was that show where the old hillbilly guys used to go out hunting monsters or whatever.
Oh,
anyway,
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, they called it a smoke wolf.
Huh.
And that sounds a lot like that. I've heard some other stories of a big black wolf-like creature from basically West Virginia, even into the Carolinas, something like that. And definitely, I mean, you got all kinds of stuff up in Pennsylvania. You've got Chestnut Ridge stuff going on up there. You've got, I think there's a triangle area up in there that a lot of stuff. Stan Gordon, I mean, for years he studied all kinds of different things that happened up there.
And the thing is, like, there's so many areas around here that I think have so much. This is my crazy hypothesis.
I love
There's
those.
A lot of areas, though, that I think have a lot of negative energy attached to them.
Mm-hmm.
Because just the stories that you hear about different areas, like when they built the interstate across the swamp up here, before it was a swamp, or when it was a swamp, but they had to take some farmland and stuff to build this interstate across here. Mm-hmm. So they came in and invoked in eminent domain. Well, that's the clean version of the story.
Right.
The not so clean version of the story is there's people in the bottom of that lake that didn't want to leave.
Right.
Now, do I know this? No, for a fact, I don't. Have I ever been? I've been fishing up there, but have I ever been in the water in there? No. No, God, I wouldn't go in there if you paid me to, because there's snapping turtles in there that are humongous.
Oh yeah.
But do I believe the story? I've had enough old people tell me these stories that, yeah, I have reason to believe it.
Right.
I think there's a lot of areas that have a lot of negative energy and a lot of negative content. Now, whether or not that has something to do with the wolf thing, or like that little man I told you about that I see was like peeking at me behind the wood pile.
Right.
You know, there's arrowhead. We find Indian artifacts every time I plow. I find arrowheads or tomahawk heads or something. So the Indians have been through here. My son thinks that a part of the reason for the relatively large amount of weirdness here is he thinks that when these loggers were in destroying things, that they disturbed something. He said whether it was a fairy ring. This was before I even knew about some of this stuff. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah. I said, you know, and he said, he's the one that told me. He said, you know, there's things you don't talk about, Dad. He goes, like, he believes that if you talk about something, you'll summon it.
That's a lot like the Native Americans believe too.
So. I don't know that I buy that entirely, but I think it's possible. Again, that's another one of those hypotheses, who sees this. But like I was saying something about Wendigo, and he came unglued. And this is my psychology student. He said, Dad, don't talk about that. I'm like, why? Because if you talk about it, it will find you.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, yeah, right. And he goes, no, have you not ever experienced anything like this? I said, well, I don't think that from what and I haven't got a solid conclusion, but I think from Wendigo is, I don't know if I so much believe that it's the thing with the horns that will, like they talk about in Wisconsin, that will come, although it could be. I think it's more of a possession kind of a thing than it is anything else, is where I'm leaning on this. But one of the stories tells about a guy who went out and the weirdest storm in the world came up. He got lost in the snowstorm when he should have been able to find his way home. Something was chasing him. Now, before I read this story, I'm muzzleloader hunting a few years ago, and I'm thinking about this. I can't, long time on tree stands. Sometimes you think about stuff, and I'm sitting there thinking, this is really nice up here, and I can't believe, and I always think about how tough the mountain men were to live in this environment, because there's no way today, even with the modern stuff we have, those guys were tougher than tough, man. They had, and I'm out there, with my muzzle loader and hunting, and I thought, I need to go back to the house. One of those occasions when I could have sworn I heard somebody holler my name.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went, click, you didn't hear that. And I keep walking, and I hear it again. You keep walking. Well, I know. I walk 25 yards to my left, 25 yards west, and then I turn and I walk straight down over the hill, and I come out quarter of a mile. I come out in my backyard. A mile, I come out in my backyard. I'm not kidding you, Robert. I was lost. Mm-hmm. I wandered around for an hour in the snow. I hunted my whole life here. I don't know what this was, but when I was so glad to get out of that, it snowed so hard, so quick, it came up. And then I was like, I don't believe in this, and I don't know what's going on, and I just started, I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. So I just started trying to and eventually it just stopped, like it turned it off. And that was almost to the house. So was that me? Was that my personal brand of insanity just kicking in at that particular moment, and nothing was really happening? It was just seemed like it was. I don't know.
I've been in similar situations where I've been in a patch of woods that I knew cold. I mean, I could have walked through them blindfolded, got to where I wanted to go, and got back, and somehow just got turned around and could not figure out where I was for, like you said, around an hour or so. Yeah. And you start to get frantic because you're like, I know where I'm at.
Exactly. I know where I am. I know where I am.
Nothing looked familiar.
Nope.
And whenever it finally comes all back around, you're like, but how am I here?
How am I here? How am I here? Right.
Yeah.
I think hunters, what hunters, I think we overestimate ourselves. Mm-hmm. And by that, I mean this. When we go out in the woods, I take a pack. My pack has a first aid kit. I've got water. I got enough water probably for a couple of days. I got enough food for a couple of days. I got means to make a fire if I need it. So I'm good for 2 or 3 days at the most. I'm going to be good for 2 or 3. I got tarp. I got, shelter. I'm good to go. I'm also carrying a firearm, or in muzzleloader season, I'm carrying a muzzleloader. I've got extra gunpowder. I've got extra balls, backpacks, the whole shebang. I've also got a Bowie knife in case I need it. And I've got, skinning knives and stuff with me. So I think we overestimate ourselves. So we think, I'm ready. I can handle whatever comes my way out there. And then we forget that we're not the biggest thing out there.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what we're hunting. And I've gone bear hunting, and it's like, I'm not worried about it. But if you think about it, you're not the biggest thing out there. And I think we overestimate ourselves a lot. And which, I'm not saying that played into the missing 411 hunters thing, because that one kind of freaked me out a little bit. That one freaked me out more than a little bit.
Yeah.
But, all that missing 411 stuff freak me out. But then you get into more things about that. But that I told somebody that I said, as hunters, we overestimate ourselves too much. We think we're, and I was in the service. I know how to survive, but it's like, you're not ready for whatever's out there. You're not ready for it. You're not.
There's something beyond the scope of what our concept of reality actually is.
Well, I hear these guys talk about the dogman phenomenon, and you're talking about how you don't want to hunt these things. You don't have the firepower to take these things on. Well, again, it falls into the way my brain works. I don't think I'd want to hunt it anyway, but I would like to see what it is.
Right.
I want to see what I personally, I believe Bigfoot is a flesh and blood creature. I don't think my personal theory is, I don't think it's interdimensional. I don't think it comes from a different planet. I don't think it's, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I don't think it's a necessarily an ethereal or a spiritual kind of a thing. I believe that I believe that Bigfoot is a flesh and blood thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I do believe people have had extraordinary experiences with it.
Right.
Which I think is just cool. But I would really like to know personally what it is, where it came from. Has it been here all along? I don't know.
Right.
I think we're seeing them a lot more now because of the way things are going, as far as the way that logging is happening now, and the way that the gas, we're clearing off land for gas wells and gas lines and stuff. I think we might have screwed up their natural habitat, or the natural, what do you call that? Their
ecosystem.
Yeah, we've messed up their pathways or whatever.
I have kind of a funny idea, a theory that you talked about Skinwalker Ranch, and how they talked about all the weird things that go on out there, and they mentioned that every time they disturb the land, as far as digging in the land and everything, that's when something happens.
Right.
Well, if you look at Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Virginia, Tennessee, areas like that, where they did a lot of digging for coal mines, and everything else, maybe that left a scar, or it disturbed something to such a degree that's why everything. I mean, there was already things there in the Appalachians, Appalachians, but I think it woke it up.
I think you're right. I think something, and that's what I think happened here. My son said, "Well, have you ever seen like a fairy ring in the woods?" I wouldn't know a fairy ring if you told me what it was. And he goes, "Dad, I'm telling you, these guys messed something up. That's why whatever's out there," and the way he put it was, whatever's out there is really pissed off right now. And the best thing we can do is just leave it alone.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go out there playing with it. He had an experience where, I don't know if I told you on the ghost story one or not, but where my wife had dropped him off up over the hill here one day on her way to work. On his way home from school, she dropped him off, and she went about her business. And he walked home like 2 miles home. He was walking down the hill, and he said, when I caught up to him, he said, "Who's those weird kids on the hill?" "What weird? There's no weird kids. There's no kids on the hill." And he goes, "Yeah, those kids that don't have any eyes."
Oh Lord!
And I went, "Who?"
Yeah.
"Yeah, Dad." And they knew my name, and they don't have any eyes. I said, "What'd you do?" "I ran." "What do you mean? What did I do?" "I ran home." So then I had to tell my dad. My dad called me and goes, "Whose kids were at my house?" I'm like, "I don't know, Dad. Why?" "There was 2 kids banging on my door. And then when I went to the door, they were at the front door banging." I said, "Don't open the door."
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who they are. And I explained it to him. Don't open the door. So something got something fired up. Now, it's been fairly peaceful as far as there hasn't been anything really bad happen other than my dad. Like I said, my dad keeps telling me he thinks that the Bigfoot's there at night. He thinks the Bigfoot comes and checks on him and mom. I said, why is that? And he said, well, because I go to the bathroom at 1:30, 1:45 every morning, like clockwork. I go to the bathroom. Okay. He goes, I go in the bathroom. He said, it throws rocks at the window. What do you mean it throws rocks at the window? Not rocks, like pebbles. You go, ding, you can hear it hit the screen, hear it hit the glass. I said, well, why don't you tell it to stop? He said, well, I did. I said, quit that. You're going to break my window. And I closed the window and it stopped. And I'm like, what? And he said, it was back the next day and did it again. Okay. You know, I had traps set down there to catch groundhogs were getting underneath their house, and the trap disappeared. Everything was gone. The steak was gone. The whole shebang was gone. I don't know what happened. I said, well, it's all mauled down. You can see where something went up through the woods. I said, maybe Bigfoot came through and there was a dead groundhog and he went, dinner, and just took everything with him. I haven't found the trap. I haven't found the steak. I didn't find the dead groundhog, so I don't know what happened to it.
Right.
But that's, you know, that's the kind of level of craziness that goes on. And, you know, some of the various weirdness. Like I said, when I saw the little man, I come down and looked it up to see what that was. It didn't mean any harm. It was literally like a kid playing hide and seek with you.
Right.
And I thought, well, it's between me and the house, so I'll go further back in the woods. How smart was that? I'll go back further in the woods because that way I can sneak around him. Really, I'm going to get really. But I got back to the house and I looked it up to see what it was. And the Native Americans have a name for the little hairy man that plays in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
And the picture that they, you know, it's somebody drawing, but it was what I saw. And I'm like, I'll give them candy. They'll be fine. I mean, I don't know why I thought candy was going to solve the situation, but it works. I put out candy. I put out apples. And the weird thing is if you put out candy, it's got to be hard candy. It can't be soft candy. And you put the hard candy out. When you come back, the wrappers are all unwrapped, like you unwrapped them and put them all together and folded them up little piles, set them on the stump. The apples and stuff are completely gone. They're just completely ate down and nothing there at all. So somebody told me not long ago that you shouldn't do stuff like that because you'll make it mad. Well, they haven't given me anything in return, and I don't expect them to.
Right.
That's just kind of my way of trying to be a little respectful when I'm doing what I'm doing. And I'm trying to do things in a respectful way so that they don't get irritated with me.
Yeah, that's the same way I try to do it too.
You know?
Yeah.
But like I said, on your UFOs, you're going to love this.
Oh yeah, I've been waiting on this one.
You're going to love this. So the farm has been in the family since 1958. My mom and dad bought it from my aunts and uncle back in 60 when they got married. But my dad always told a story about when they moved out here. When you go back to our back field, you'd hear a humming noise, a real low hum for years and years and years under the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So his personal theory was he thought there was a UFO base under the back field. And people looked at him and said, yeah, okay, Uncle Bob, whatever. You know, good for you. But here's why he thought that. Every once in a while, you'd be going down the road you'd be going west to east down on my road. There's a bridge down here by the road crossing. And you'll see lights. It looks like an airplane. It's light, big light in the middle like this. It'll come in like this towards that bridge, and it does this and banks over and drops down into that gully where that creek runs through. And then you can see the lights going up that gully. Up through, you can see them going through the lights through the trees and the whole shebang.
Right.
So the first time my dad saw this, he thought, oh my God, a plane crash. And then he said, I don't know why I thought that, because it didn't stop. There wasn't a bang. It just did this and went up the gully. Well, at the top of the gully, where it rolls back around towards the field, it dead ends. So like the creek is over here, but the gully ends here. So if something came up that, it's feasible that if he was right and there's a base under that field, that could be the entrance. That they could go right straight in. And if you look at that, it goes straight under our field.
Oh, wow.
I've never seen any evidence of anything like that up there, but I have seen the lights. One cousin was out here one night fox hunting. And Dad came home from work and he was in an absolute panic. Oh, come on, there's a plane crash. There's a plane crash. Dad's like, what are you talking about? These lights, it was a plane. And it's up there. And Dad says, there's nothing up there. I'm telling you, you're not going to, I'm going to go look, call the cops. Dad said, I'm not calling the cops. I'm going to go look. We'll go look, but you're not going to find anything. So he went with them and they went up the whole way up this thing, 2 miles trip to the back there. Nothing. What was that? Dad goes, it's a UFO. To tell you, that's what it was. I didn't believe it. Well, now I believe you. So I told my wife this story. We're dating, and I told her, I said, now you're going to see some weird stuff out here, like lights and stuff. And she said, oh, what do you mean? I'm like, there's UFOs. She says, yeah, right. Well, I'm telling you, there's UFOs out here. There's UFOs. Yeah, right. I don't believe in any of that. Okay. When I was a kid, about 16 years old, I was out feeding the cows one night in our lower pasture in the wintertime, and there was something, your classic triangle shape, light, that came up from over the swamp, up over the pasture field, real quiet, no sound, over top of the pasture, and was gone. And I went, and this again, it's back in the day before cell phones. You can't take pictures of it because I don't have anything to take pictures of it. And the cows didn't seem to care. They just wanted their hay. Mm. And I said, well, that was kind of weird. I have to ask Dad about that in the morning. And I asked him about it. He said, well, I've seen a lot of weird lights at night. He said, but I don't know what to tell you. I do the majority of my field work at night, and you'll see all kinds of weirdness out there in the middle of the night when you're on the tractor. You'll see weird, just bizarre lights and football-shaped things. And she's always asked me, the wife's always asked me, what are you going to do if you're out there doing your plowing or something and one of these things lands in the field? I said, I'm going to tell them to move because they're in the way. You got work to do. You got to get. But ha, big joke. We don't believe any of this stuff. Okay, great. No. Now, when I was laid up, I used to watch the light. I had my shoulder operated on. I used to sit and watch the lights. I couldn't sleep. So I look out the front window and watch the lights over the swamp. And it was so cool because it looks like if you took a spotlight and we're on the ground and we're shining a spotlight at the clouds, like doing like this with it, you can see the spotlight go up and you can see it on the clouds. Mm-hmm. That's what it kind of looked like, but there was 5 of them doing all this, like this stuff. And I was watching it going, well, that's kind of neat. And then all of a sudden in the middle, there was like a little pinpoint of light. And then it just got big, like that. And then these 5 things went over to the side, and then they all came one at a time, came into the big thing, and it just blinked out and was gone. Huh. And I thought, ain't nobody going to believe that. So I got to tell her. So I go, get up, wake up. She's like, what do you mean wake up? It's 2:00 in the morning. You got to come see this. These lights are really cool. Look, I'm going to go to sleep. I'll look at them later. No, I'm telling you, you got to see them now. I'm not going to play this with you. Okay. So I kept trying to wake her up to get her to go look at the light. They were there for like 2 weeks every night they were doing that. I was trying to get her to look at them. She says, I'm not going to step 2:00 in the morning to watch lights. Okay. Finally, one night I caught her. I said, come here. You got to see it right now. They're really cool. She said, okay, so you'll shut up. I'll go look. She came out and went, huh. Well, that's interesting. That was all she really said about it. Now, I did have a case where these things they would come west to east, and then they stop, and then they'll go straight north. I had them do that one night, and that was kind of funny because they had just been on the news talking about the Navy. The Navy's going to be in the area doing research on UFOs, unidentified flying objects in this area. And they're telling all holding on news, and I'm like, yeah, okay. So I'm sitting there watching these lights, like doing what they do every night. And there was helicopters. You could hear helicopters coming. And it was so funny because this light went out and the helicopters went through. And about 10 minutes after the helicopters went through, the light came back on. It went about its business the rest of the night. It just flew around. And I watched it for another hour or so. And it's like, that's kind of interesting. Right. And again, it's one of those things though, you think when we talked about taking pictures and zooming in and everything. So I'm trying to take pictures, trying to take videos of this, and that cell phones are horrible to do that with because it's really hard to get anything. But the one night, the lights came down over the intersection, like I was telling you, That thing comes in. I see it like doing the bend. I jump in my truck. I said, I'm going to catch this now. So I drive down there. I drove up underneath this. That's lights. I drove up underneath it, leaned out the window with my cell phone and went, click, gotcha. Guess what? I got nothing.
Mm.
There should have been something there. There was nothing.
Oh, wow.
And I went, crap. And it's going, now it's leaving. Now it's going straight west. So I turned around and I'm flying down, got to this field and I'm taking pictures. Gotcha. I got nothing.
Oh,
I got
man.
a couple little blurry, little tiny light things. You can't, it's like, that's not what I saw. So last winter, I come home from somewhere and I came in and I'm watching the light. And now there's this triangle shaped thing again coming from west to east. Actually, it's like southwest to northeast. And I'm like, it's low. I'm like, I'm going to get this one for sure. I got my cell phone. I got it ready to go. I got the camera on and I'm waiting. Come on. This thing got up here and just about the time I got to my house, all the lights went off in my house.
Mm-hmm.
My cell phone died. It went right over my head. And as soon as it got past the tree line, everything came back on.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, crap. So I don't know what I'm going to have to do to get some kind of, I don't know what I'm going to have to do to. So see, right. I got about 6 areas of investigation I need to do here, Robert, and I don't know where to start.
Well, that's typical Pennsylvania for you. There's everything going on at once up there.
Yeah, they can't get in order. They can't get in a straight line here.
Right.
Yeah, I got about, and then who knows what the next weirdness is going to be. It's going to pop up because then I started watching the, like I said, I like to watch Tubi because there's a lot of Bigfoot stuff on there.
I do too.
A lot of documentary stuff. I don't care about the movie stuff so much as I like to watch more of the documentary stuff. Because I think you can learn, even if you just pick up a little tidbit of something from somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to pick something up and you're going to file it, And if you start hearing the same thing enough, you're going to go, maybe there's something to that.
Right.
And that's where I've come across that show, Werewolves Unearthed. And I started watching that because they talked about, Bigfoot things in Ohio and there's potential sightings of a Bigfoot dogman in Shenango, down on Shenango Lake in Pennsylvania. Well, crap, that's 20 minutes away. So I started watching it and I'm like, and then the whole thing, every place on that, I know where it's at. I know every location they were at. I've been through those areas a million times. And I'm like, who knew? I didn't know. And they had a guy talking about how the Bigfoot and the Dogman don't necessarily get along and they've got their own territories, but it runs all the way up through the Geneva Swamp and all clear up towards Waterford, PA and Cambridge Springs. And I heard about the Waterford, what'd they call it? The Waterford werewolf. It was supposed to be something like a Bigfoot that was up there killing cows. And Waterford's like 5 minutes from my mother-in-law's house. And I did ask her uncle about that. I said, what's the thing about this Waterford werewolf thing that was going on back in the 60s, 70s? And he goes, we don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what he knows about it because he won't tell me. Right. But I'd like to find out because I kind of know a couple of the areas where that was at. But it just gets just about the time I start thinking one way. And I think it's where we got to be careful and not just honing or zoning in on one idea or 2 ideas and going, this is it. There's my 2 bedrocks right there, because we don't know. And like you've said, none of us are experts in this. And anybody that tells you they are an expert, I think I take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because let's be honest about it, there's none of us that know. We're all learning.
Exactly.
And that's what I found so fascinating, because I was listening to the Dogman Encounters radio, and I'm pretty sure it was on it. It's like, you need to go check out, if you're enjoying the show, go check out Monstrous. You'll really like it. And I was like, I'm going to check this out. And I love this. I love this group. I love the podcast, because this is one of the rare places where we can have an open discussion of ideas.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And not be I don't know how I'm trying to say, not be pigeonholed into saying, well, it's got to be this and it's got to be that and it has to have this and has to do this, and if it doesn't, then that's what it is.
Right.
Because we're all learning, and the more we learn, I personally think that the more that we learn, we might get closer and closer and closer to the answer of what this really is.
Yes.
Whether UFOs or Bigfoot or whatever. I mean, I watched the show a few years ago. I've got it on tape here somewhere. That's how long ago was that, right? It was on VHS. It was recorded on VHS, where a guy pointed out they were talking about the whole. And I know we don't talk. This is going to get a little onto the religious side.
Oh, you're all right.
This guy said, the guy pointed out, he said, do you know that it's possible? And I keep mulling this there. Do you know it's possible for a non-physical object to leave a physical trace? For example, you can tell someone, you can hypnotize somebody, tell them they're holding a cat. They'll see the cat, they'll feel the cat, they'll pet the cat. Tell the cat to scratch him on the cheek and wake him up and they'll have claw marks on their cheek.
Yes.
It's a case of the non-physical leaving physical trace. And he brought this back around to say, that's why what I think UFOs are, he said, do I think that they're extraterrestrial? I think there's a possibility that some of them could be. He said, I think a lot of UFO stuff is demonic. He said, because if you look at a lot of his conclusion was, if you look at a lot of the accounts of UFO abductions and what's done to people that are abducted, he said it matches a lot of stuff with demonic oppressions and stuff that happened in the past, demonic possessions that happened in the past. He said, so his personal thing was he thinks it's demonic.
Yep.
I don't know that I believe that so much as far as a concrete thing. I like to lean along the lines that we'd have to be pretty egotistical to think we're the only thing in the universe. I'd like to think that there's something out there that's maybe better than us.
I would say this. I was looking at my bookcase. Jacques Vallée years ago came out with a book. Yeah, exactly. Came out with that book, and he ties a lot of what has to do with the aliens, the abductions, and the people who have memories of this. Right. He ties a lot of that in with the old folklore of the Fae. Right. And what happened with people. And I think it was Joshua Cutchins. He had another book that had to do with that as well. And I've got it on my shelf. I just can't see it because I'm sitting in the dark. But there's a lot of that all ties together. There's a lot of with ghosts, the Fae, aliens, demonic stuff, everything. It all kind of ties together and blurs together, even when you get in with Bigfoot and Dogman and all of that. So we that's why we in the group, we try to cover everything. Right. We try to talk about all of it, and we'll have a show once in a while where, like the last show I had, where Jess and Ryan and I got on, and we'll have some fun and we'll beat up all the different Bigfoot theories and stuff like that. But it's not to degrade anybody who thinks anything different than what we think. It's to have fun and discuss it and to get people to think.
Well, yeah, and if you do it that way, it makes people actually step back a step and go, let's don't get so serious about this, and that we're going to get all kind of upset about it.
Oh yeah.
Let's just kind of look at let's don't be totally, but let's be honest about it, dude. There are some pretty wild theories out there.
Oh yeah, there are. There's some really crazy ones out there that you're like, okay, if you base it a little bit in reality, I mean, just hang on to the edge of reality just a little bit, you're going to get a little bit more respect from me out of it. But I mean, there's some out there that you're like, oh, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah, exactly. And that was like that again. That started into something today. That was when I read the one thing today about it was some theory that somebody had. And I really didn't have time to really get into it. And I kind of read it and I thought, maybe I should go back to that later. And then the next time I came back and looked at whatever this wasn't on this group, and this other, I looked in this to see what the next comment was. And there was a bunch of people that were kind of sort of kind of beating up on them. And I'm thinking, no, that's a good way there to get somebody to not participate in these things.
Yeah.
And that person there that you're getting to not participate might be the person that's got the one piece of evidence that we need.
Yes, that's true. You know? That's true.
And I don't tell people a lot of stuff. I got to back up 1 second. You're going to like this one, because we were coming home from my mother-in-law's. This is the end of my UFO. Coming home from my mother-in-law's 3 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. I'm driving. It's kind of late. I think it wasn't raining that night. We come down, but they're doing road construction at Geneva Marsh right now. So I'm coming down. I come out of Meadville, and I'm coming down on the interstate, and I saw these lights way over here on the left. And I just kind of looked. I'm keeping an eye on it. And I just kept on driving. And I'm going. Now they're over pretty much straight out ahead of me. And this is square shaped. And there's lights on the four corners, but it's square.
Uh-huh.
I went, I'm not saying anything, I'm just driving. Then I saw it kind of went back over here and come back over and back and forth. And so at one point I actually went, I think that's a cell tower. And then I went, no, wait a minute, there's no cell tower over there. So, because there's kind of a few lights in the middle, like a light here, a light here, a light, and then it's weird where they're at. And these ones are different colors, but it's not like a typical plane, anything you've normally seen. And I'm driving, not saying a word, I'm just driving. And I look over out of the corner of my wife is sitting up like this, looking out the windshield. And I said, what you doing? She goes, do you see that? Yep. What is that? Not missing the beat. I went, there's a UFO. Dead quiet. And she looked, and I said, yeah, now you can no longer be a non-believer because now you've seen one. I just kept driving. She's serious. She's like looking out the window. She's like leaning over the back seat, looking out the back. What are you doing? Looking to see where that thing's at. So, well, you keep an eye on it. I get off on Route 19. I'm going down. Where's that light at? She said, it's kind of behind us. I said, keep an eye on that, because if this turns into a Betty and Barney Hill kind of thing, I'm not going to be happy. I don't know what that means. I'll explain it when we get home. But yeah, all of these fields, all of the various theories of what any of this could possibly be. I think, first of all, we don't know. None of us are experts, and I think it's cool that we can all get together and discuss it.
Right.
Tell our stories in such a way that we're not going to have somebody go, and they might shut it off afterwards and go, that dude was completely out of his mind. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm good. You're not going to hurt my feelings telling me that. But as long as we can have like a good discussion about things, I'm good with that too. Because somewhere, how does that thing go? The answer is out there somewhere. Right. We don't know what it is. And we might never find out the answer.
Exactly.
But this is how we find out the answer. Talking to each other, having these stories. And that, not only does it preserve, the stories preserve family heritage and family folklore and histories, but sometimes there's something in those stories that you go, that makes sense now. Now that I've seen this and now that I've experienced that, this makes sense now. That I understand why they said that. Right. Like I said, I never understood why they would say, if you hear something, call your name. No, you didn't. If you don't look into the tree line. If you heard something in the woods, no, you didn't. If you see something in the woods, no, you didn't. And I never understood that until things happened. And then it was like, now I get it. Because that becomes the stuff in nightmares that even now, almost 60 years old, I'll get a nightmare occasionally with that. I can still see that.
Yeah.
And eyewitness testimony is not infallible. But after you've mulled over your whatever it was you've seen, and you've digested it and you've broken it down as much as you possibly can, and once you've explained, and once you've figured out, once you've gotten rid of, whatever's left's got to be true. Once you got the improbable, it's got to be true, whatever's left.
That's kind of like what we've discussed about before. And people get their feelings kind of hurt about this, but it's me as an investigator being very honest.
Right.
Eyewitness testimony is something that we use to lead us to evidence.
Right.
is I can't even talk. Is eyewitness testimony actual evidence? No, it can be corroborating
Right.
evidence, or the evidence that we find that goes along
Right.
with it can corroborate their story.
Right.
So it has to be something more than, I mean, like I told you, I'm walking in the woods or walking across the field. I look, I see something. Do I have any evidence to back it up? No. And
No.
my testimony alone is not enough to be evidence,
Right.
but it's a cool story.
Well,
And
yeah, and that gets somebody else on the line to go, maybe we ought to go out and look at this and see.
exactly, exactly. And that's why eyewitness testimony is so important, because it leads us to evidence.
Yeah,
If
I know.
somebody comes up and they tell me, "Hey, look, I had the weirdest thing happen to me last night. I was seeing these eyes. I heard this thing howl. There were scratches on the wall. I think it was the dog man. Will you come out and look?" That's what I need. I need
Right.
beyond
Exactly. Yep.
just that. I need you to, or you or whoever, tell me, "Hey, come out and take a look and see
Right.
if you can find any
And that's
evidence."
what I'm.
It's
That's what
whenever people don't want you to come out and look that I start to have problems.
Yeah, that's what I'm telling people. I'm like, come, call me. I will come look. Or like in the case where I had the stuff going on, I was like, I'll show you.
Yeah.
You go take a look. I'll show you where it was at. I'll show you. Come on, I'll show you. And it's kind of funny the amount of people who will say, that's crap. But then when you say, well, come with me and I will show you, and they go, no, thanks.
Yeah.
Why don't you want to go? If it's crap, why don't you? What are you afraid of?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's going to get me for bringing you out. It's not going to get you for coming along. It's going to get me because I was stupid.
Right.
And it don't like people, but it's going to get me because I broke the rule.
Yeah.
It's yeah. And I know a guy, kind of the guy that got me started back into looking into things. I met this guy about 10 years ago at a Christmas party of all things.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the one guy who he wasn't in with everybody else playing cards and eating and drinking. And he was out in the woods behind his house. And I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, well, I'm looking for signs of Bigfoot. And I said, cool. And he said, you're not going to make fun of me? Nope. He said, why? I said, because I know they're here, dude. I know they're here. And if you want, I'll come with you to look for Bigfoot signs. I don't know what I'm looking for, but I'll come with you and look. He goes, you're serious? Mm-hmm. This guy, to this day, 10 years later, these guys that were his friends, they're still his friends, but they still, every chance they get, hey, you find a Bigfoot yet? You find anything about Bigfoot yet?
Mm-hmm.
Leave it alone. He knows what he's doing. And honestly, if he ever does find it, he can walk up and get a picture with one, a big old hug with one, and he's not going to show you the picture anyway because you made fun of him the whole time.
Exactly.
And that's what bothers me, is I'm afraid that somebody's going to come up with something, but they're going to have been ridiculed on it to the point where even if they do get something, they're not going to tell anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be the piece that you need.
Yeah. Oh, I agree 110% with that. The problem is we have the flip side of that, where you also have the people who think that every photo of the woods, there's a Bigfoot hiding in the shadows.
Yep.
And so there's this weird balance that we have to do. And we're trying to be careful not to offend anybody, but we also have to maintain scientific standards. And
Right.
I don't know why people get so butthurt every time I bring up science. They're like, well, science doesn't, science is junk. And I'm like, well, everything you have is due to science.
Right. And not everything in the woods. I'll give you an example. That's kind of funny. You said that about everybody takes pictures. All the Bigfoots in the woods. Every picture you take of the woods is Bigfoot. My dad, this is probably about 10 years ago. My dad went on this tirade about this groundhog in the field below his house.
Uh-huh.
Now, my dad has my grandpa's 30-06. This has sniper sights on it. This gun don't miss. If you're shooting it and this misses, it's your fault.
Mm-hmm.
So he says, you have any shells for the aughts? Yes. I took down 3 or 4 boxes of 30-06 shells. And I listened for an hour, probably. Bang, bang. This man shooting for an hour. I finally said, I got to go see what's going on. Went down and said, Dad, did you kill it? And he goes, no, it's still sitting there. You shot like 5 boxes of 30-06 shells at this thing. What do you mean it's still sitting there? Can't you see it? That's not a groundhog. Yes, it is. So I walked down, look. He hit it 20, 40, 60, 80, 100 times.
Jeez.
It was a tree stump.
Yep.
So not everything you look at is what you think it is.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because I remember seeing an interview with Sinbad, the comedian, years ago, and I didn't know that he had all these advanced degrees. He's a really smart guy.
Yeah.
And one of his degrees is in parapsychology or something. And he actually made the statement. He said, they were asking him about that. And he said, before I started studying that, I didn't believe in it. But after you start studying that, you see it everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
That's what kind of bothers me a little bit, because part of me thinks that a lot of people, now that they kind of start studying it, now they do see it everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, it's not there, but they see it everywhere.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that as a shot at anybody, because I'm just as guilty. There's been time when I've been staring and going, what is that? What is it? And I went, oh, I know what it is now. So I don't mean that as a shot at anybody in any way,
Right.
shape, or form. But yeah, you're right. When science you have to bring science into this, and you have to look at things. You have to almost look at this like a crime scene.
That's exactly what I do.
It's exactly how you have to look at things. It's like a crime scene, and who, what, when, where, why, and how.
Mm-hmm.
And ask yourself all that stuff to get the right answers.
Yep.
And that's what I said. Like the weirdness that goes on. Now, a lot of stuff that happens, not everything I see is a UFO, and I know that. Not everything that I see is a Bigfoot or a dog man or whatever is in the woods. But there's enough weirdness out there that I don't have to. That everyone doesn't have to be, because there's enough weirdness going to fill in behind it anyway.
Exactly.
And I don't know why that is, but that's part of my deal. Is I want to know. I want to figure out why, because I want to know what it is and why it is.
I agree.
If this happens to be like a migration path for a Bigfoot, I'm good with that. I'm 100%. Right. I got a game trail across my backyard. I got a porcupine that comes across there 2 times a year. Takes him all day to get across the yard, but 2 times a year the porcupine comes through. It's a game trail. It's a migration path for him. I don't care. He doesn't bother anything. And if this is a migration zone for Bigfoot, as long as they're not bothering anything, I don't care. You know, even if they do bother something, what am I going to do about it? It's not like I'm going to go out and say, hey, get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe that might work. Because, you know, Dad tells, hey, stop throwing rocks in my house. Okay, we're good.
Yep.
So you never know. You never know.
Well, I tell you what, Mr. Jim, we're at about an hour and a half. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to wrap it up. If you'll hang around just a minute, I'm going to do the closing on this. I had a fantastic time having you here, and we'll definitely have you back.
Good. All right. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And thanks for being a part of the group, and your input on there is really appreciated.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Hang on just a second. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining in again on another episode of Monstrous, the podcast. Don't forget, you can find us on YouTube, Rumble, Spotify. You can find us on Facebook. Of course, we have Monstrous, the group. Look us up there. Only rules is no religion, no politics. Other than that, everything's a go. You can find us on Instagram and probably just about on all social media nowadays. So remember, lock the doors, lock the windows, check in the closet, check under the bed, because monsters are real and you never know when they're going to be back.